The Kansas City Chiefs make a statement on Monday Afternoon Football. The Big Ten is back in, but do we care? And a conversation with former Heisman Trophy national championship winning quarterback from the University of Florida, Danny Wuerffel. It's all coming up right here on The Elite. Noah, let's face it, if you go anywhere these days, you need a mask.
That's right, Clint. If you go to the bank or the gym or even the store, you're going to be required to wear one for the foreseeable future.
If you're going to be rocking a mask, why not do it in style while celebrating the Chiefs Super Bowl victory in the process?
Absolutely. Visit our friends at Noble Apparel to check out all their selections of masks that come in all styles, from Frozen to Spider-Man, and of course our defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Noble Apparel is KC born and bred, and their merchandise is by Chiefs fans for Chiefs fans.
Visit NobleApparelKC.com or check them out on Facebook today at Noble Apparel 816.
This is your Olympic hero and former WWE champion, Kurt Angle. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my guys, Clint and Noah. When it comes to covering sports, there is no one better. And believe me, that's true. It's damn true.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%.
The elite. Best of the best.
You are now listening to the Elite Sports Podcast, brought to you by Vermeil Wines and powered by GASN Sports, the pinnacle of hard-hitting sports talk, featuring weekly expert analysis and top-notch interviews. And now, please welcome your hosts, Noah Groniger and Clint Schweitzer.
Well, Noah, I think I delivered a pretty powerful opening there. When people tune into this podcast and they hear that, they're definitely staying tuned in through the intro, through the commercial, the Noble Apparel commercial. Man, they are dialed in, they are ready for some Danny Wuerffel, and they're going to get it right here, Noah, because that's why this is the Elite Sports Podcast. Former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Danny Wuerffel going to be joining us. In fact, Noah, after 8 years, our first Heisman Trophy winner right here on the Elite Sports Podcast. Pretty excited about this one, man.
Oh, you absolutely have to be. I mean, last week we have Tim Brando. This week, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, national champion Danny Wuerffel is going to be on this show. Like you mentioned, we bring the Elite Podcast interviews to you right here and only here. And man, I'm excited for this week. Tim Brando last week said he had Georgia over Alabama. We kind of talked back and forth. We thought it was going to be Alabama, and it was. I mean, it was an impressive win. And man, those Alabama Crimson Tide are just at it again.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I think that I loved what I've seen from Alabama's offense. We talked to Tim Brando last week about the fact that they only left 41 yards ungained in the game against Ole Miss. That was a crazy game. Alabama's defense gave up, a lot of points and a lot of yards as well. But we've seen what these receivers, what these weapons can do. And Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith and Mac Jones has really become more than just a game manager for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And you know what? Their defense played really well in this game. We had Byron Young, defensive end, on this show back this past summer to talk some Alabama football. And it's good to see him, kind of rising up. The secondary got burned a little bit downfield by Stetson Bennett downfield, but they were able to shore that up in the second half. They turned a deficit into a runaway victory. In Alabama, it's a collision course. You can give them the SEC championship. I believe they will be in a rematch with Georgia, I don't know, somewhere around February for the SEC championship, whenever that's going to actually take place due to COVID-19. But I think that in December, when that game actually happens, if that's actually when it is, that they will have a rematch with Georgia, and that Alabama is certainly, they're the gold standard. They're the blue blood in the SEC right now. But the SEC East as a whole, I believe right now is better than the SEC West. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, you've got Auburn struggling, Mississippi State struggling, LSU struggling. I mean, I think it has to be the SEC East. I never thought that would be the case. I mean, you've got Texas A&M. They beat Mississippi State. Of course, they beat Florida. And we're still waiting to see kind of how Florida is going to rebound from that loss to Texas A&M. They'll still have a say in this thing with Georgia. I do agree with you that it probably will. We will get a rematch in the SEC championship between Alabama and Georgia. Like, Stetson Bennett, Alabama Crimson Tide defensive line, kind of overwhelmed him to start things off real quick. But he kind of found his footing, and they got on a roll. And then after halftime, Saban, the great coach that he is, made his adjustments. And he's 22-0 now against his former assistants when they go become head coaches. We thought maybe it could happen one of these times. Maybe it will, but he's 22-0, and he's just mopping the floor with his former assistants.
Well, in a week that doesn't have that many marquee matchups, the Big Ten is back in, and they're not really adding a lot to the table, at least to me, at least glancing, over the schedule for this week. I mean, I think it all starts on Friday night with Illinois and Wisconsin. Lovie Smith still trying to gain some footing there for the Fighting Illini. We think Wisconsin's going to be pretty good. Aside from that, you got games like Rutgers, Michigan State. I'm really intrigued by Nebraska at Ohio State because you know exactly what when the schedule came out and you saw Nebraska opened at Ohio State. You saw, Nebraska was the team that was putting together a lawsuit with players' parents, and they were really on the forefront of we got to play this season, and they were really going against 10 hierarchy. Good luck with that, Nebraska, because you're going to Ohio State. And so really, does the Big Ten joining the college football season, do we welcome them aboard and say, get on and let's roll? Or is this sort of like, okay, a little too late and I don't care?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. For the most part, I do not care. You look at these teams of Penn State, a Michigan versus Minnesota we have this weekend. Penn State travels to Indiana. They don't have a lot of intriguing matchups that I'm going to be looking at. It'll be interesting to see, though, if Ohio State can get into this Final Four national championship talk and realm, because it looks like we've talked about it. It's a collision course between Alabama and Clemson. As it is most years, it looks like it's going to be this year. But maybe Ohio State, we haven't seen them play, so we don't know. Maybe they can have a say in this thing when it's all said and done.
We will definitely see. And, we talked earlier about the Florida Gators, and we're going to be talking to Danny Wuerffel here in just a minute. Florida looked so good early on with Kyle Trask. Really looked like, it reminded you of the days of a Danny Wuerffel back when Steve Spurrier was at the helm and the passing attack was at an all-time high. And really, the loss to Texas A&M, does that really take Florida out of this thing? I don't think it does. I think you're right. You said Florida's still going to have a say in this, and I do agree with that. I love Kyle Trask. In fact, we were there. We were in Gainesville back in 2018 when Missouri knocked off Florida in Gainesville. When Felipe Franks was ineffective, the fans were clamoring for Kyle Trask. He came in. He led a touchdown drive. The fans were on board from that minute on. Unfortunately for Florida, they didn't realize until it was really too late that Kyle Trask needed to be the guy. Now he's here. Now he's, kind of in the last year of his eligibility. So we're going to talk with Danny Wuerffel about what he thinks about Dan Mullen and this incarnation of the Florida Gators. He's such an ambassador. I mean, the guy was born in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. He's from the Florida kind of panhandle area. Back in 1996, they beat Florida State in a rematch, and they'd already lost to Florida State earlier in the year. They avenged that loss. They avenged their loss the year before to Nebraska, which we talked to Jacquez Green in the past, a receiver on that team, that they were embarrassed by that, and they were on a mission, and they came back and won that title. Danny Wuerffel, one of only 8 players in college football history to win a Heisman and a national championship in the same season. Of course, you know that Tim Tebow accomplished the same feat just about 10 years later. But on the other side, guys, stick around because we are going to be talking with none other than former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Danny Wuerffel. Guys, we have so much still to come here on the Elite Sports Podcast, but we want to take this time to tell you about our new sponsor, 500 Level. 500 Level is the ultimate sports apparel and fan gear store, and they feature ultra-comfortable custom t-shirts for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and even WWE. I just got a Macho Man Randy Savage shirt from 500 Level that has been a conversation starter everywhere I go. 500 Level was created because they decided it was time to create an apparel company that put the fans right in the mix, instead of having to outfit themselves with the same old gear from major corporations. 500level.com works with exceptionally talented artists, designers, and diehard sports fans to create unique t-shirt designs for fans to wear with pride. I mean, here in Kansas City, it's time to defend that Lombardi trophy. So stock up in 500 Level's unbelievable inventory of never-before-seen designs for players like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or even rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You literally can't find that anywhere else. Use promo code KansasCity20 today for 20% off your order at 500level.com. That's promo code KansasCity20 for 20% off only at 500level.com. Thanks so much for joining us, my friend. How's everything going, man?
Doing fine. Making the best out of a crazy time.
Well, it has certainly been that, but I'll tell you this, for football junkies like us, when football season starts, it kind of lessened the blow a little bit. It returned us to a little bit of a normalcy, whatever that word means. Although now we have cancellations and postponements. We're in Missouri. Missouri, Vanderbilt gets moved, Florida and LSU as well. So there's still some hurdles along the way here, I guess, shall we say.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what's it been like? I mean, you've seen the Florida Gators play a couple games here. Kyle Trask looks like the real deal, losing a tough one, though, to Texas A&M. What do you make of Dan Mullen and the Gators so far, man?
Well, I'm super pumped with Mullen. I was happy when we got him as a coach a few years ago and have been incredibly impressed with so many aspects of him as a coach. I'm also a huge Kyle Trask fan, which – at this point is not a hard thing for anybody to see. But early on, even the few times he got in early in games, I thought there was something special there, and his story is outstanding. So everything's bright, except we have a really struggling with our defense right now that makes it really difficult to win games.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of your life and what's been going on with you. I know you've been busy, you've been doing so much and doing so many, influencing people in such positive ways since your pro football career ended in 2004. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what your life has been like lately, where people could find you. The website's DannyWuerffel.com and can kind of see what you're up to, whether it be public speaking or what I believe is a tremendous thing that you're involved with, which is Desire Street. Kind of talk to us about those avenues for you and kind of how things have been going lately for you, man.
Yeah, well, I tell you, my life's kind of broken up into a couple segments, and there obviously was my college and professional football career. But after that, I've been involved deeply with a lot of different things. My main role is as the executive director at Desire Street Ministries, and we work in very under-resourced neighborhoods all over the South. We partner with leaders that live and serve there that don't have the training or the resources they need to be effective. So we get a chance to partner and make a difference in thousands of young children's lives and families that often don't have the same opportunities that perhaps you or I did. And it's been incredibly rewarding, but also very, very difficult. There's lots of challenges. So that's been really exciting. Desire Street has been, as I said, a big part of what I'm doing. And, life seems like when you're young, it's a long time, but as you get older, those years go by quicker, and you just have to think very carefully how you spend your time in your life. And I want to live a life that makes a difference. Do
you think football prepared you kind of for this in any way? I mean, you're drafted in 1997, by the New Orleans Saints. You played there for a few seasons, and you played pro football until 2004. But do you think the game of football, with kind of the idea that it brings people together in so many different ways, and there's so many different life lessons to be learned from it, do you think that kind of prepared you for what you do now?
I think so, a lot. I think there's some very unique lessons that are hard to learn in the classroom. In fact, I think one of the reasons they developed, interscholastic football in colleges was to teach young men lessons they couldn't learn in the classroom. That was one of the reasons it started. And, I think of things that, just the reality is so simple, a few simple things that are so profound. I mean, life is tough. It really is. And you learn that in football. It's tough. You learn that it's not about you. It's about your team, that no one person is all that important. You learn that there's things that are far outside of your control. There's just so many incredible lessons that you don't just learn, but you experience. You sweat into these lessons. You sometimes bleed or break into these lessons that really stick with you for the rest of your life. And I mean, there's several times where I've been knocked down in a lot of ways, and things that are happening with life. Hurricane Katrina impacted us deeply. We lost our house, and a lot of things went wrong. Several years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder and was paralyzed for a while and literally knocked down. And I think back to Florida State, 1996. They beat us. They knocked me down 32 times, but you just keep getting up. And then eventually we got a chance to beat them for the national title after that. So, sometimes the best thing you can do is just get up, and lessons like that from football are part of my everyday life now.
Absolutely. And you're a Florida great, Danny. Just talk to us about Gainesville. Over 90,000 fans inside Ben Hill Griffin, the striking orange and blue colors, the swamp, the chomp. What makes Florida a special destination in the SEC?
Man, well, I'll be honest. There are some very special places to play, a lot of electric stadiums, but I am impartial to the Swamp. I think there's a brightness about being in the sunny Florida weather that really creates a dynamic. I remember the first time I ran into the Swamp as a redshirt freshman, I can't even describe it. It was almost like you went into a cartoon land, because all around you, it was just colors. Like, it wasn't like real life. And then it was deafening loud, and just such a great opportunity to play there. Great home field advantage, great fans, and a great stadium.
Well, a couple years ago, you got to sit down with another Heisman Trophy winner from the University of Florida, Tim Tebow. I took a lot from that interview because it was taken aback by it, because Tim talked about how he got your autograph at a church when he was a kid and how big a fan of Florida he was. And it made me realize that, and especially with what you're doing now, kind of tying it all together, is that you never know who you're influencing. That's a big lesson in that, to take that someone like Tim Tebow, just as a kid, as a normal kid, going to church and going to school and being a fan of the Gators, winds up kind of being influenced by you and taking on a similar role in his life. And what was that like, kind of sitting down with Tim and sharing some of your guys' experiences?
Well, so often you don't know the impact of what you do. And so at times when you get a chance, a glimpse to see it, that is really rewarding and special. And, I don't necessarily remember that event or that time or when he was a young boy, but he does. And, I think that the other thing I'd want to add there is, it's easy to think that, if you can influence someone that goes on and does great things, then that's sort of a measure of success. But I think it's so much more profound than that. I think about, if there was a dad one time along the way that was discouraged, and I helped give him a little inspiration to go care for his kids more. You're not going to see that on ESPN, but that can make a big difference. If there's a kid who wants to give up, if there's anything happening that you can make a difference, you never know. And so I really try to live. There's a kind of a line that a mentor in college told me, and it's been used in different ways, but that God cares a lot more about our faithfulness than success. We can get so caught up in what does success look like, whether on the field or whether in impacting other people. But if you focus more on being faithful, whether you're training for your next practice or your next game, or whether you're being faithful and serving someone else, I think that's the measure we can hold ourselves to.
Very well said. And Danny, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, talking about there's a lot of special destinations in the SEC, not just Florida. Just whether it was the sights, the sounds, or the overall total atmosphere, what were some of your favorite road environments that you experienced in the SEC?
Well, what I'm about to say is going to sound a little bit cocky, and it is. And it's also hopefully a little bit true, in that a lot of the really, really amazing loud stadiums got really quiet after about, the first quarter when we played them. And so, I played in some places where Death Valley and LSU Stadium is amazing, but we got them quiet quick. The Neyland, Tennessee Stadium, when we played Peyton in 1995, I think it was, 96, it was the most people ever to watch a game in a stadium, and we scored 4 straight touchdowns. And so fortunately we were in some pretty neat places that didn't get as electric against us. Now, ironically, and I think related, the game we lost on the road in the SEC, only lost one road game in the SEC in 4 years, and that was at Auburn. And that place got pretty loud. So that's pretty neat. I've also had a little bit of a unique experience afterwards now to go to some of the stadiums and experience it. And that's obviously a very different way to experience a game.
Well, kind of growing up here in Missouri as we did, we're watching the Big 8 growing up in the 90s, but seeing Florida emerge the way it did under yourself, Steve Spurrier, and kind of just something about the colors and the stadium, and it just kind of overtook what we were watching in college football. Just kind of talk about that, because we've had some of your former teammates on. We've had Jacquez Green on the show. We've had Travis McGriff on. We've had so many guys that were a part of this. There was something truly special about the dynamic that you guys built during that time. And people that didn't really watch the SEC or were from, Missouri at the time, not in the SEC, really took to what you guys were doing because of that offense. It was just a truly special time for college football, was it not? In the SEC, that was just really unbelievable and unprecedented.
Yeah, well, I remember, a decade before that when I was a youngster, we lived in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1983, and I watched Mike Rozier win the Heisman, and sort of the perennial teams. You're looking at Nebraska and Oklahoma, and then Miami, and all these teams, and as we moved into the 90s, sort of to think that I was part of something that emerged. That prior to that was a very average college program, and to be a part of that with Steve Spurrier and to put Florida on the map, have people recognize our logo, to all those things are great, but then also to help sort of move the game along to the next level from where, especially the SEC was the Herschel Walkers, the Bo Jacksons, just pound it. And then we come along and start throwing it all over the field and having success. And then see sort of how the game has evolved. It's great to know that I was a part of that as well.
Well, just talking about that, we were talking about Steve Spurrier. Just what are some of the biggest lessons that he taught you, and just why was it the right decision for you to go to Florida and be under a coach like Steve Spurrier?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, at least for me, what football meant was throwing the ball to your buddy, and he runs a route, and you throw it in front of him, and he runs and catches it in stride, and that's the most fun part of football. And to have the opportunity to do that with a coach that's brilliant at that and throwing all over the place was just a dream come true. And he embodies a couple things that are unusual to have in one person. He has this insane attention to detail, and the way he would coach routes and the way he would coach the drop backs, and I mean, your head position on every play had to be perfect. And then he pushed for this preciseness. But then on the other hand, he also had this very flexible, fluid, okay, well, if they're going to do that, you be the bottle cap and you're going to be the leaf and you're going to run up there and turn right, and he'd make up plays on the fly. Whereas most coaches that are that precise are going to really be, overly cautious and wouldn't run a play unless you practice it 100 times. But he has this precision and flexibility in one package that I think is really, really powerful. And that plus several other lessons and experiences, certainly I would say playing for him has altered the trajectory of my life in a great way.
Well, Danny, we've had the pleasure of going on the road and covering the SEC now. We're finishing up actually a film where we went to all 14 different SEC locations, interviewing great players from the past, such as yourself. They all kind of had a theme, and I want to ask you about it because you're drafted into the NFL in 1997 by the Saints. I mentioned that earlier, but so many of the players, whether it be someone that went on to be an All-Pro, Super Bowl champions that we've interviewed, they all said that no matter what in their lives, they look back and it was their experience in those 4 years at the college they went to, that there's something about that embodies their entire lives were embodied in those 4 years. Is that something that you would say kind of as accurately describes you as well? I mean, I know that your pro football career wasn't super long, but still you make it to that level. It's a tremendous accomplishment. But do you think it's the college years that you kind of harken back to as your best years playing football?
Yeah, I think so. I would probably nuance that a little bit in that, that the high school experience was unique and different and really, really shaped me in a lot of ways. Obviously, the college experience and the success that we had, the lessons I learned kind of shape a trajectory for my life. But I would also say, even though my NFL career was not near as successful as my college, obviously it's an understatement, still the experiences, the people that I met, that's where I got involved in New Orleans with Desire Street. So they each sort of have a different role in that. But there is something special, I think, about college, something special about being in the SEC. The competition is so high, the level of intensity is so high. Not a lot of people can say they go to play in the NFL when the stadium is less attended and less noisy. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing to say you move to the next level, and in some ways things are smaller than in your college experience.
Yeah, and they say that the SEC, like the slogan is, it just means more. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it does mean more in the SEC in the South? I know there weren't a lot of pro sports back there back in the day, and so there's this tie, there's this bond with the communities and the universities and their football programs. Why do you think that is?
Probably several things come into play. I mean, I think you're in the South. There's really emphasis on football has sort of continued to be king, whereas in other parts of the country, other things have developed more. I think that the programs have gotten great support from the boosters, and just, it takes time to develop these programs, and you get the right coaches in there. I think there's also leadership at the conference level. But yeah, it's pretty fun. One of the things is when you do play in the NFL, everybody, a lot of the arguments you're arguing about how good your college team was and how good your conference was. And it was pretty healthy and safe for me to enter those arguments coming from Florida and coming from the SEC, because it's pretty hard to argue there's another conference that's near as dominant or as tough as the SEC.
Well, I'll tell you what, Danny, before we get you out of here, we got to do our first and goal segment brought to you by 500 Level. 4 quick questions. We're going to start at first and goal. We're going to get to fourth and goal. We're going to get into the end zone, hopefully by the end of this. Whatever comes to mind, 4 quick questions, and whatever answer comes to mind. Are you ready, sir?
Okay, I think so.
Okay. Where is your Heisman Trophy, and why is it not right behind you?
Heisman Trophy's downstairs. It's sort of next to the fireplace. We put some of our trophies. That's there. Some of the kids' trophies is sort of the place where we display it. Quick funny. Do you want a quick funny story, or do we need to
Absolutely.
Go to
yeah.
Yep.
First quick funny story is we used to leave the Heisman at my parents' house when I first won it. And so when Katrina ruined our house, fortunately the Heisman wasn't there.
Wow.
My parents. And then when we did get it, we didn't have any furniture, so we put it on the floor. And my 2-year-old son went running into the room, tripped and fell, and hit his head on sort of the corner of the base of the Heisman Trophy, gashed his head open, and now has the coolest scar ever.
That is a great story. We're glad everything turned out well. The next one, although you silenced a lot of stadiums, what was the loudest stadium that you played in? Was it Jordan-Hare in Auburn at that time?
Probably intensity-wise, yes. I mean, the beginning of the Tennessee game, I think there was 107,000 fans in 1996. May have spiked up there as well. Yeah, some great places.
Okay, so I've got to preface this next win by saying that we had the honor of meeting Steve Spurrier for the making of this film. And he is one of the funniest people I've ever met. And, he found out we're from Missouri, and randomly we're talking about the 1966 Sugar Bowl, in which he fell short apparently against the Missouri Tigers back then. And he remembered every second of that. What is the most random or funny thing that you ever remember Steve saying to you in a non kind of football capacity?
Well, I may bring it back to football because it's too good to pass up. But on one of my first interceptions, I thought the receiver ran the wrong route. So I was hoping he would see that and blame the receiver and not me. And he came onto the field and he scratched his head. He said, "All right, Danny, don't worry. It's not your fault." So I took a deep breath and he goes, "It's my fault for putting you in there. You're out." So that was one of my favorite Steve Spurrier lines.
That is great. Well, it's fourth and goal here. We got to punch it into the end zone. So what is the craziest fan interaction that you've ever had or encountered?
Let's see. Fan interaction. I had someone invite me to a funeral for somebody who's a big Gator fan. And so I showed up, and then when I got there, they brought me back into this room in the church where there was the whole family, which I thought was a little awkward because I didn't know any of the family, but I kind of went along with that. And then they wanted to introduce me to the pastor about my remarks. And I said, "What?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, we want you to speak." And so it was this 1,500 person crowded funeral. And that was awkward. But then I ended up sitting in the front row kind of by the widow. And then when they got up after the funeral to take the casket out, which is sort of first, and everybody else stayed. The family was gathering to go in, and the pastor mentioned to me to get up with the family. And when I walked to the middle, it was the widow, and then she grabs my hand. So just picture full church, casket, me holding the widow's hand, and the rest of the family behind us. And I finally just went in and just started nodding at people and acting like it was normal to be there.
Well, I think there's some shenanigans at play here. They obviously didn't go to DannyWuerffel.com and book this situation, and that's a little bit of a loophole, and I don't think that should be celebrated going forward whatsoever. But that's hilarious, and I'm sure of anyone that can make the best of that, it would be you, my friend. That's pretty good.
That's kind. Thank you.
Well, Danny, we can't thank you enough for joining us and for everything you're doing. I want everybody to go to the website. It's DannyWuerffel.com. You can see all about everything you're doing now, whether it be public speaking, Desire Street Ministries, which is just tremendous. Danny, thank you so much. God bless you. We will definitely have to catch up again down the road. Go Gators this season, and hope that we can get this season off without a hitch the rest of the way, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. And also check out the Wuerffel Trophy. It's a college award for community service. I'm really excited and proud about that. There's links to that on my website, and keep your ears open. Maybe when one of your teammates, wherever you live, or one of the players on the team you root for is a nominee or a finalist or perhaps the winner, doing community service, making the world better. So thanks, guys. Noah, thanks, Clint. God bless you. Take care.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks.
That was awesome. Hope you guys will go to his website, DannyWuerffel.com. Check out Desire Street Ministries. Everything Danny is doing, positively influencing those in his community. I think that's tremendous. And no, Danny Wuerffel's NFL career wasn't what he and what a lot of people wanted it to be, drafted by the Saints in the 4th round, like we talked about, but what he's done off the field since, and being an ambassador for the University of Florida and really setting them on a course to being one of elite back in the 90s. Danny Wuerffel, certainly a career to be remembered, and such a tremendous guy. That was an awesome interview, and I'm so glad we got to do it. We're going to be talking Chiefs, National Football League, when we come back right after this. Noah, the Kansas City Chiefs get a much-needed win on Monday afternoon football. Well, there's nothing that goes better with football than beer, and we're excited to have Golden Road Brewing as one of our newest sponsors for the show. Founded in 2011, Golden Road is Los Angeles' largest craft brewery, with brew pub locations across California.
Golden Road is excited to celebrate the Kansas City Chiefs with its partnership beer, Kingdom Blonde Ale. Kingdom Blonde is available at local retailers and in the Chiefs Stadium during regular seasons.
Golden Road's year-round offerings include Mango Cart Wheat Ale, Wolf Pup IPA, and Fruit Cart Hard Seltzer. Golden Road brewers are constantly experimenting with the freshest ingredients to keep fans' taste buds happy with a collection of rotating seasonals, creative flavors, and classic craft brews.
Pick up a case of Golden Road beer at your local store to enjoy before the next game. Visit goldenroad.la/beerfinder to buy Golden Road beer now.
Noah, the Kansas City Chiefs get a much-needed win on Monday afternoon football. Let's call it happy hour football, as the Chiefs went to Buffalo and took care of the Buffalo Bills in a game they dominated, doubling the Buffalo Bills with regards to total yards in the game and really dominating time of possession, yet only winning 26-17. They did it on the ground in this game. Patrick Mahomes, 20-25 for 225, 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't really needed in this game. This was not one of those Patrick Mahomes air raid Kansas City Chiefs games. This was clearly a message, at least in my opinion, from Andy Reid, that this team really needed to find themselves, get more physical. After the Raiders really took them to the woodshed in the second half of the game the week before, you could tell this Chiefs team was embarrassed. Players, by their tweets, by the things they said in the media, they couldn't believe what happened. The Chiefs got up 14-3 on the Raiders, and they said, we beat the Raiders. Andy Reid's 10-2 against the Raiders. They just don't beat the Chiefs. It doesn't happen. And I think they kind of mailed it in. And this performance showed that this team could bounce back from something like that. Totally dominating a team that just the week before we were talking about Josh Allen for the NFL MVP. Well, that's kind of off the table now. The shine is off the Buffalo Bills, but the Chiefs are a big part of why that is. And the Chiefs look like they've established themselves back into that realm. I mean, you got the Titans and Steelers this weekend. There's going to be, a team with that are going to be, with a loss after that. So do you think this win for the Chiefs puts them back in that conversation? And are we able to look forward and start thinking about the 1 seed again?
Absolutely think so. I didn't really think that the loss to the Raiders took them out of that conversation. It was more of a wait and see approach that we talked about last week. This team has earned the benefit of the doubt. They've earned to overlook a team, just have a bad game and be able to regroup and come together and not let that happen again and use that as fuel for their next against a Buffalo Bills team, like you mentioned, that everyone was talking about. They were the darlings of the NFL. Josh Allen, MVP, right up there with Russell Wilson. That's kind of gone by the wayside. And man, what an impressive performance. I mean, the Bills were still in the game, even though the Chiefs were dominating. We couldn't punch it in the end zone. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbles the ball, if that actually is a fumble, maybe the Bills go and win that game and steal it from the Chiefs. Luckily, his knee was down, but an impressive performance by the offensive line. Mitchell Schwartz left early with a back injury, so they shuffle. Nick Allegretti comes in. They took out Austin Ryder and started Daniel Kilgore at center. Mike Remmer switches from left guard to right tackle when Schwartz goes down, and they just absolutely dominated the Buffalo Bills up front from start to finish. An entire 60 minutes of dominant football in the run game. They run 4 most times that an Andy Reid team has committed to running the football in his career. So, I mean, just what they were able to do. And even though Mahomes only threw the ball 25 times and they ran it 46, Mahomes after the game, talking to Aaron Andrews, mentioned that. He's like, you know me, I want to throw the ball down the field. I want to push the limit. I want to score in these quick drives, quick plays, and I want to get Tyreek Hill the ball downfield. But, man, if teams are going to play this cloud coverage and play us deep and play 7 back and only have 4 or 5 in the box, I mean, we have to run the football, and we did, and we committed to it. We got away from that against the Raiders. We were kind of just stubborn and wanted to keep throwing the football even though everything was telling us to run. And this week they committed to it and they stayed with the run 46 times. And man, it resulted in a victory. So maybe the Chiefs are showing you with Le'Veon Bell coming in this week that, hey, we can do whatever you guys tell us that we need to do. If you're going to play deep, we'll run the football. If we start running on you and you come up, we'll throw it over your head. We can do it all.
I think the Chiefs are getting ready to absolutely start feasting because the schedule opens up. You're going to Denver. You've got the Panthers and Jets, and then you go at the Raiders. And I'll tell you this, going to Denver, I know Drew Lock is back. We'll see what he's able to bring. We love Drew Lock. We've covered him since he was in high school, and we want to see him succeed. But the Broncos kicked 6 field goals to beat the New England Patriots. Cam Newton did not look like he wanted to be there. This team they did not look like they'd been practicing, which they hadn't due to COVID, and that's a whole nother story. But Denver has not beaten the Chiefs haven't lost to the Broncos since 2015. It's been 5 years. I don't think this is going to be the year that it happens. I think it will happen eventually. That's just how these things work. Although in the 1960s, the Chiefs went 19 against the Broncos. We're chasing kind of similar numbers here with the dominance Andy Reid has shown the AFC West, but they've already dropped the game to the Raiders, a game they don't lose either. So going to Denver, 3:25 on Sunday. What do we look for here? Is this one of those games that Denver's going to try to muddy up, limit possessions, try to dominate on the time of possession, try to keep the football, or are the Chiefs in trouble because they've got to keep the ball away from kicker Brandon McManus?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs could be in trouble there, although if this was an Alex Smith-led team, I'd say we would be in trouble. If we held the Broncos to 6 field goals, we probably could lose an 18-15 game. We might have done that at some point in the playoffs against a Pittsburgh Steelers team. I don't know, maybe not. But this Denver Broncos team, I think they could, if they wanted to, run the football against us and keep time of possession, but I don't think they're smart enough to. I don't think they have just the fortitude to just stick with the run game all day like the Chiefs just showed against the Buffalo Bills. Melvin Gordon's going to be coming back. They've got Phillip Lindsay back last week against the Patriots. He was injured for several weeks. He's back. So they've got a 1-2 punch there that's really strong. And if they committed to the running game, they could muddy it up and win time of possession. But now that they have Drew Lock back, I think they're going to be trying to get Jerry Jeudy into the fold. They've got this guy, Tim Patrick, who's just come out of the woodwork, really. Didn't hear much about him. He kind of showed out a little bit last year when Drew Lock took over. And he looks like Drew Lock's favorite target right now early on in this season. So I think they're going to try and throw the football around and try to show off that Drew Lock is their guy moving forward. And they've got this passing game. They just drafted Jerry Jeudy. They've got KJ Hamler. They've got some weapons. I don't know if Noah Fant's going to be back. He was out last week. I don't know if he's going to be back, but they're going to show that they have these weapons. I don't think they're going to commit to the run game, and the Chiefs win big.
Well, the two big games to me, when you look at it from a Chiefs standpoint or from an AFC standpoint, you've got Titans and Steelers. We've been awaiting this matchup. It was supposed to take place, a couple weeks ago, and it's finally going to happen. And they're both undefeated, and someone's going to have a loss after this game. And then you've got Bucks and Raiders. I think you look at that as kind of a marquee matchup this week because the Raiders had a bye week after their win over the Chiefs. Can they sustain that? And then the Bucks coming off that absolutely triumphant win over the Green Bay Packers. To me, those are the two games I'm highlighting. What games are you looking at, or do you agree with me, and how do you see these playing out?
No, I absolutely agree with you on those, especially in the AFC side of things, and that's what we're kind of focusing here on with our Chiefs. And as the season moves along, who's going to get the 1 seed? And we do have these two undefeated teams. They have a better record than the Chiefs as it stands right now, the Steelers and the Titans. Man, that's a tough one to call. The Steelers haven't played a ton of people. I don't know if they have these great weapons on offense. They have been outscoring teams, but it's teams like the Browns who are throwing pick sixes and just turning the ball over, and just the Browns aren't ready to fight for that division right now. And the Steelers do have a great defense. TJ Watt out there. I mean, he's just wrecking teams. Of course, a Watt, just like JJ Watt does with the Texans. Ben Roethlisberger's back. I don't know if Ryan Tannehill is going to be able to figure out that defense. I don't know if Derrick Henry is going to be able to get the running game going. So I like the Steelers there. And I think Tom Brady and the Bucs, they're getting healthy. They've got all their receivers back. Gronk's getting into the fold. Ronald Jones III from USC, he's now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at running back, is looking impressive. They're getting LaShawn McCoy out in the running game. That defense is getting after people, Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh. So I think the Bucs are going to be too much for the Raiders.
Yeah, it all remains to be seen, and we hope you've enjoyed listening to us here on the Elite Sports Podcast. The website is always gasnsports.com. That's where all of our interviews, articles, and podcasts are all archived right there. You can check it out, gasnsports.com. As always, we hope you'll press that subscribe button, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. If you've got a podcast app on your phone, you've got the Elite. So hit that subscribe button. It really helps us with regards to kind of crunching our numbers, figuring out what we can do year to year, week to week, as far as guests and things like that. So we hope that you'll do that. Hope that you guys are ready to buckle up. Or as we get set to sort of hit the end of October, Halloween's coming up. This is my favorite time of year. The weather gets crisp and cool. You can go outside, have a bonfire in your hoodie. Football is going as we know it. I mean, you know what? There's some games canceled, some games postponed. Missouri's supposed to play Kentucky on Saturday. They were supposed to play Florida this week. I don't even know week to week who, people in the SEC are playing, and it's really created kind of a mind scramble for me, but we're all in it together. Guys, have a great weekend. Pull up a chair, enjoy some sweet tea, maybe put a little rum in it. It's getting cold outside, and enjoy the Elite Sports Podcast for weeks to come, because we're going to keep bringing it right here on GASN Sports.